I have a lot of fond memories for the Xbox 360. Countless hours of gaming with my friends across my entire high school life. But on the Xbox there were 4 titles that I loved more than any though. Left 4 Dead 2, Halo Reach, XCOM Enemy Unknown, and Gears of War 3. Out of that list I have since relived my nostalgia for 3 of them through the PC, but the one that got away from me was Gears, having not played a single game since Gears of War 3. Today though, that changes. I am Kane from VividChim, and today we look at a game that immediately caught my interest as soon as it was announced, a game that promises an experience set in the Gears universe but with XCOM-like mechanics. I was immediately hooked on this idea. Disclaimer before we start this review for the sake of transparency by the way, due to a certain company, my PC upgrades have yet to be achieved. What this means for me is that the game actually looks pretty awful, and I'm going to go into why that might be the case during the presentation section. I'm going to include some higher quality footage that I've downloaded just to represent the game a bit more fairly. I don't want to misrepresent this game in a way that's unfair. I want it to come across the way that it should be intended to come across. I will show my footage almost entirely in the gameplay section, but in the earlier 2 sections, being the presentation and the narrative, expect some comparison shots from my footage to the actual footage, or just straight up downloaded footage here and there. With all that out of the way though, it's time to ask, Gears Tactics, how bad can it be? Tactics is a prequel to the Gears of War franchise, being set years before Marcus Phoenix ever got to leave his own prison cell. But it does have its links all the way up to Gears 5. The story follows Gabe Diaz, father of Kate Diaz, as he is accompanied by the incredibly mustached Sid Redburn, and they both embark on a top-secret mission for the coalition of ordered governments to assassinate the Locust scientist known as Ukon, known for breeding dangerous monsters for the Locust Horde. You progress through a series of missions to further the narrative, collecting and meeting characters along the way to help you with your quest to kill the Locust, all with some political intrigue, hints of a troubled backstory, among other little sub-stories that are sprinkled in. Don't be fooled though. The game, unlike XCOM, is about the main hero characters, and this comes as both a blessing and a curse. We'll discuss why it's bad when we talk about the gameplay, but the reason it's good is that it allows a game like this to have a really gripping story alongside the gameplay elements. One of the tiny nitpicks I had with Enemy Unknown is that the story revolved around you as a faceless puppet master, pulling the strings to defend the world from aliens. While it was good from a tension and pressure standpoint, it made it so that narratively the game kinda felt a bit airy. There is the objective at the end of the tunnel, but you ended up missing out on a lot of the real implications that an invasion would come with, because you were either just talking to faceless monitors, building rooms, or just killing greys. You missed out on a lot of that real world implication that Gears does really well. That's not to say that XCOM had nothing going for it in terms of its narrative, because where it lacked in terms of overarching plot, it more than made up for it in terms of the smaller, more detailed narratives that the soldiers get. Whenever I play XCOM, I get super attached to my units, subconsciously building a bond with them through the war stories they experience and the ever-looming presence of death. Tactics lands in the middle, pulling from the weaker and stronger sides of XCOM to create a more balanced affair. It has a strong sense of plot with actual characters on the ground. They talk to each other about the consequences of their actions, and the consequences of the Locust's actions. The only problem is that due to this plot being linked to hero characters, all other soldiers kind of feel disposable by default, and thus you tend not to get that attachment factor that XCOM does so well. It's there, but nowhere near as powerful, partially because the presence of death not really existing as much in this game, but we'll get back to that later. So, where do I begin? The way Gears Tactics looks, aside from in my case, is good. In fact, I'd go beyond it that it's good. I'd say that it's pretty damn great, honestly. But why does it look bad for me? Well, I have a theory about this, and I may be wrong, but I have a theory. Occam's razor, it's just my PC. That's probably the issue, really, here. I haven't got my new one yet because of certain companies, and yeah, that's probably what's going on, but hear me out, this is kind of what I've worked out through my experience streaming this game. The game renders and loads in textures based more on the CPU than the GPU. What this seemed to mean for me is that it didn't matter what my settings are at, the textures wouldn't load in because it was dependent on my CPU, which was also focusing on running the game, and my stream. I know this because I had it on ultra settings for everything with no change whatsoever. The game still showed the low models. Then I switched it up by turning on the advanced setting of async compute, which seemed to fix my issue by spreading the load to my GPU, which admittedly is not also out of date, but I got actual textures out of it, so you know, something happened at the end of the day. No idea if that's what happened or if it's even meant to work that way, but it did, so I've got nothing. Anyway, when it's at its peak settings, the game is a feast for the eyes, but regardless of the settings, the sound is a little bit on the weaker side. The squishy sounds of the executions were sweet, and the executions in general were just incredibly satisfying to pull off, but overall it's just not the best audio-wise. Nothing too memorable. Gears Tactics is just excellent. The game is marvellous in terms of its gameplay. Turn-based tactics in the vein of an XCOM game, you control a series of troops as they go through a variety of mission types, strategically murdering your way through the hordes of locusts. This game is brutal too. It is so easy to get swarmed by a variety of enemies in no time at all, and I love it. It's not XCOM brutal, but it's challenging in a way that is deeply gratifying to play, having to fight your way out of dangerous and potentially deadly situations on the fly. As of writing, I've yet to have someone die, but I have had many people go down because I'm an idiot. One of the key abilities in Gears Tactics is the Overwatch feature, something which is constantly used by the drone AI to keep you locked in place. The Locust snipers actually use a very similar ability. This brings a really nice tactical element to the game and highlights the importance of positioning your troops. Too close and they will get locked into an Overwatch death trap, too far and you may be left with a soldier isolated and unable to be used. It's also really great for you to use against the AI, interrupting movement or even chipping away at the overwhelming numbers of enemies. Tactics also has a series of bonus objectives with each level, the completion of which provides you with extra rewards. I really like these missions as they ratchet up the stakes that little bit more compared to what they already are. The timed bonus missions especially make it tense, and whilst I personally suck at them, it does encourage more aggressive and fast-paced gameplay, which really spices it up for someone like me who usually goes the more strategic and deliberate route. It isn't entirely perfect however, and that stretches from its changes to the XCOM formula. Firstly, we have the lack of death as a presence in this game, and this comes down to the ability to use Second Wind to revive yourself. It comes at the cost of using most of your action points, but it kind of nullifies the fear of having a soldier die, not to mention that if one of the hero characters die, you fail the mission entirely and have to reload anyway, further muddling that presence of death that this type of game excels at really well. Speaking of the hero characters, there is another downside to them, and that's having them be required for certain missions. Now it's usually only 1 or 2, but some missions can require up to 3 of your slots to be filled by them, which really renders your squad choices limited. I found myself playing the game with just the 3 main hero characters with 1 other soldier the entire time, because it just feels pointless doing it otherwise. Leveling up troops is also easy, as any new recruits come in at the level they should be at, making early game troops quickly redundant honestly. The perks you get whilst leveling are the real reason to keep multiple troops around though, as the variety of paths and specializations you can take make for really fun combos and strategies. Overall, Gears Tactics is an incredible title, and I would go as far to say that it's a must-play if you're a fan of the turn-based strategy genre. Well-paced, intense, super satisfying to play. I genuinely wouldn't be shocked if Gears Tactics ends up as one of my games of the year. It's a testament to the quality of this game that despite my PC situation screwing me over in terms of its graphics, I was still completely enthralled and engaged by the gameplay elements of Gears Tactics. If you don't have this game, you need to get it. It's that damn good. If you want to hear more of my opinion, why not head over to the VividChim Patreon right now, where we have the extended How Bad Can It Be podcast. It's a new project that I'm working on where I can discuss things in a bit more detail and include things that I don't get to mention in these videos because time constraints. You can listen to that for as little as $1 a month. It goes a long way in helping us out, but the best way you can help us out is by clicking that like button, clicking that subscribe button, along with the little bell to keep notified as soon as we upload a video. We have a lot of games upcoming, so you definitely want to stick around. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all soon.